is time to talk about episode 4 of Prehistoric Planet Ice Age. This episode is titled Grasslands. Again, another aspect of the Ice Age that not too many people consider. So this episode starts off really strong with Elasmotherium. I love Elasmotherium. Rhinos, as you know, are just amazing, and Elasmotherium is an amazing rhino. This design is a lot more like up to date to what most researchers seem to think in terms of that structure on its forehead. The idea is that it was a boss instead of a large horn. Many of you might recognize Elasmotherium from projects like Prehistoric Park, where it had a huge horn. Nowadays, it's not believed that that's the case, and rather it was either a reduced horn or no horn at all. And they go with the no horn representation right here. Beautiful design. It's got the huge hump, a lot of fur, and it's in a glorious field. It was awesome. It's also being attacked by ticks and by ravens who are taking its fur to go and make nests. It was so cool. And I love seeing modern day animals interact with extinct animals. Again, that's something that just helps put into perspective how recent this time was in a relative scale. I just love that. I'm glad that they include things like that. And there was so many shots throughout this whole documentary that was just like live action shots of real animals, because they can do that in this documentary, and I'm glad that they took advantage of it. Now, to get rid of the ticks, to take care of the ticks, and to take care of the ravens, this Elasmotherium goes to roll around in some mud. The only thing I could think about right here is the mudhorn. Was this all a giant mudhorn reference? If you don't know, the Mudhorn is an alien from Star Wars, from The Mandalorian specifically, that looks kind of similar to an Elasmotherium, like some of the older depictions that gave it a giant horn. Obviously, the horn's not in the correct spot, and there's some things that are different, but the vague outline and the whole idea of the animal looks very similar to the Elasmotherium, and obviously it's covered in mud. So we see Elasmotherium, like an accurate depiction of Elasmotherium, cover itself in mud. Is that a Mudhorn reference? I hope it is, because that would be so hilarious. Even if it's not, I'm going to call it a Mudhorn reference, because that's just so funny to me and amazing to me. I loved the Elasmotherium bit. If you couldn't tell, it was incredible. We also go to Africa, where we see a lot of live action animals, like some zebras, although I think a lot of the zebras were CGI, and some ostriches and things like that. Again, I love seeing modern day animals here. It's just amazing. The zebras are taken down by a Machaerodont, a scimitar-toothed cat, or a few of them rather. I don't know which specific one this is. And this is where we're introduced to giant otters. Well, enormous otters, rather. I believe that these are, and bear with me now, Enhydriodon, which were these huge lion-sized otters. Otters, as you could probably guess, are carnivorous animals. You know, they are predatory animals. And you can really tell when they're huge like this. So they challenge the scimitar-toothed cats for the kill. And there's this really cool scuffle between the two, like two of them, and it's amazing. Again, I really like the mammal fights in this, because they feel very real and just scrappy, and like real actual fights, you know. So the otters win, and they scare off the scimitar-toothed cats, and then they take the zebra for themselves. It was a brief little segment, but it was awesome to see creatures like this on, you know, with this kind of CGI, and you know, given the chance to shine again. From that point on, we saw the beautiful Gigantopithecus. I was so glad. It was a nice surprise that Gigantopithecus was going to be in this documentary, and it actually had like an extended section dedicated to it. Now, there's a caveat with having the Gigantopithecus, is that you might be a little bit sad. So I predicted all the way back when we got those images that Gigantopithecus, we were going to be seeing it when it was on its last leg. And the reason why I was thinking that is because this episode is titled Grasslands. Now, if you don't know, Gigantopithecus was adapted for forests, and it's thought that it didn't go extinct until grasslands started to overtake their forest environments, and they weren't properly adapted for that. And so as a result, they went extinct. I figured that we were going to see the Gigantopithecus not doing so hot in this episode. And I was right. This Gigantopithecus, it's struggling to find a mate. It's struggling to find fruits and things like that to help sustain itself. It's pretty sad overall, especially with how realistic the movements are on this ape. they killed the ape-like movements, just like subtle things. The way it just kind of like, as it's eating, it just kind of like looks around and just focuses on random things. And it, it's just like doing all these little sounds that it makes, and the way it kind of like grabs things and kind of like looks and places them down. I love really good looking ape movements because I love primates. I think primates are really fascinating animals. I love gorillas. Gorillas are incredible. Obviously, the closest relative to to Gigantopithecus are the orangutans. And so as a result, a lot of artists they depict Gigantopithecus as basically a giant orangutan. Because that's the most we can really do. We don't have a lot of fossils for Gigantopithecus. We mostly just have like jaw bones and a lot of teeth, and that's about it. We don't have anything else. So, what exactly it looked like is really a matter of debate, and it's purely up to the artist's interpretation. There are some elements about this one in Prehistoric Planet that kind of look like a gorilla, which is a little bit less likely given the fact that it's more related to orangutans, but it also seems a little bit distinct from that. It kind of seems distinct from orangutans, and it seems distinct from gorillas. In a lot of ways, it feels like its own creature, which was a good route to take. I'm glad that it was mostly quadrupedal, walking around on all fours. A lot of the earlier depictions of Gigantopithecus portrayed it as like an obligate biped, kind of like Bigfoot or the Yeti walking around. But it's likely, much like other great apes, that it was walking around on all fours most of the time. We do see it go bipedal a little bit, but it's kind of like in the same way that you'll often see gorillas do it today, where they just do it for like a short distance instead of like, their primary mode of transportation. I really loved the Gigantopithecus segment. It was very sad that we were seeing this animal on its last legs, basically. But that was like one of the biggest pushes in this episode, was that they wanted to show how some animals were thriving at the introduction of grasslands and how some animals were not thriving and not doing so hot at the introduction of the grasslands. And unfortunately, my boy Gigantopithecus was the one that showcased the latter, and it's very sad indeed. I loved it though. The CGI looked amazing. Its design I thought was really pretty dang good. I did quite like it. But then I'll go ahead and move on from that, and we did see Doedicurus as well. Which is another type of giant armadillo. They have like this huge spiky club at the end of their tail. Their segment was dedicated to two males fighting for mating rights, and it was just really cool. It's always really cool to see these animals clash into each other, especially with CGI like this. And then we also get to see woolly mammoths again. This time they're trying to travel to a place that would provide a little bit more rain because they're kind of struggling. They don't have a lot of water. The calf that they have is struggling, and they end up getting into a dust storm, and it's absolutely brutal. The CGI looks amazing. The visuals are amazing, but the poor little calf is obviously struggling right here. Their segment was really fun. It's always great to see more mammoth things, and it leads to them kind of like meeting up with a bunch of other mammoths around a watering hole. And there's just so many mammoths here. You can see like a lot of different coloration in their fur. It is known that mammoths had like a wide array of different colors. Like some were more black in coloration, some were brown, some were like reddish. Some were more blonde. So it was nice to see some of that in this. In an earlier shot at the beginning of the episode, we actually see a bunch of bison alongside some mammoths. I love bison. I would have loved to see a little bit more of that because bison are amazing. But again, it's just really cool to see like things like bison alongside the woolly mammoth. And then again, at the end of the show, there is the under the ice segment, the segment that provides a little bit more information. And this time they discuss how animals got to be so big during the Ice Age, which is a question that a lot of people frequently have. So I do recommend checking out that portion because it offers a lot of really cool insights, and it has a lot of amazing little shots of their CGI models in the real world compared to humans, which is just invaluable. It's always great to see comparisons like that because it puts it into perspective. That was another great episode. Highlight for me was the Gigantopithecus. I love that fella, man. I'm so sad that it was in the context that it was, but it was still amazing nonetheless. It was so great to finally see a Gigantopithecus that was handled with such care in terms of its movements and its overall behavior. Love the episode. Definitely go and check it out if you haven't already. But that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.